There we go.
Building a 2,000 point orc army list. Step-by-step guide from combat patrol or boarding action. Discover tips and strategies to expand your forces, conquer the tabletop, and unleash the mighty force of the wall. Join us as you begin your journey to dominate the battlefield with your unstoppable green tide.
Whoa.
Hello, everybody. Today we're going to discuss making 2,000 point lists or 1,000 point lists we'll cover as well slightly. But the main topic is getting to that 2,000 point list. And we're going to make sure we're not just spamming units. That way, this is applicable throughout the edition, throughout metas, to understand the kind of idea that I would have given myself in hindsight going into Orks, as Orks are a horde army and there's a lot to do and a lot to collect. So let's take a look real quick at the boarding actions or the combat patrol, starting with the combat patrol. So combat patrol, I really like that it's a really good foundation for the Orks. It gives you a war boss, gives you the 2 units of battle line units. I think you should pretty much always have 2 battle line units as an Ork player. As we're going into the meta right now, I'm going to start with 1,000 point list because I was getting that in the Discord and I've been getting that in comments. So we're going to go straight into a 1,000 point list building from a combat patrol set. All right. First off, going into this, what I would suggest, getting that knob on Smasher Squig. So you would need a Squig Hog Boy unit as he comes in it. You have an additional leader. You have a unit to lead. He's a great no-brainer unit to add. Then I would immediately go into a Mega Knob unit. That way your War Boss and Mega Armor has someone to lead, someone to assist, someone to work with. So right away going to a Mega Knob unit. They have really good bits. You have nice things to start off with. Squig Hog Boys are a unique line. They're a new line to the Ork index collection, however you want. And so you really want to pick those guys up. They'll be relevant and they'll look great in your army for a long time to come. Storm Boys are a very good looking line of models, but they're also very utilitarian, right? They come in there, they give their own unique ability to the battlefield as they're one of the few flying units in the Ork line in general, and they're one of the few units currently on our index that have an innate deep strike, right? So the Death Copters have a deep strike and the Storm Boys have a deep strike. I'm not talking about an outflank. A deep strike is different. So you really want access to that at the moment, but throughout the edition, Storm Boys have been useful and very loved models as they're a beautiful line. So to reiterate, Squig Hog Boys, so you can get an additional unit as a leader. Mega Knob, so that your now leader that you possess has someone to buff. Storm Boys to give you utility for speed. And then I would end that off with a nice unit of Gretchen. Okay, Gretchen are always useful throughout all time that I've been playing 40K. You always want at least 1 unit of Gretchen in your army. So just right away as you're starting off going to 1,000 points, add those Gretchen in, and currently they're very useful. So that's what I would do for 1,000 points. Well, let's go to 2,000 points already because I just wanted to count that off. That's just for people who want an idea. A couple of units you can get. If you don't agree with that, you want to do your own wall, that's fine. These are just units that I'm saying directly build upon that patrol box, right? So this is where I would lean a little more, right? This isn't competitive, guys. Remind you, this is if I'm going into this thinking I'm going to start an Ork collection. Whatever I collect, I'm going to have to build. It's going to take time. Point changes are going to happen. The meta is going to change. You don't want to change that, right? You don't want to change into that and be catching up to the meta. You'll start to hate the hobby. You'll start to hate the edition. You'll start to get very frustrated. So when I'm coming in here with what experienced players would think of as a Highlander list style, right? I'm thinking of what units would I add to my army without duplicating too often. That way I have a nice swath of units to start building my wall around, right? As you expand your collection, you'll know more things you like, more models that you want to favor, more ways you want to wall that you'll start moving into that. But this is what you would want to start with, almost like people would consider a Highlander army, right? That still cohesively works together. Isn't just some random cohesion of armies, models that you're just grabbing just for the sake of it, right? So right now, currently in the index where we're going with the meta, and because he's a new model, that goes with the relevant new line of models that have added to the Ork line, right away, Beast Boss. Very beautiful model, very fun. He comes in there as an additional war boss. You can give him an enhancement, but anybody on this list that you can see of leaders would be applicable for an enhancement. As you can see, I went off my prior advice for the 1,000 list and I added the knob on Squig right away. Let's just get straight into him. He's very useful. He can get head Wappus, kill Choppa, and come in there and be very good at killing tanks. And he's faster. So then you have the War Boss and Mega Armor. You can decide to give him utility, like I said, but he's who comes from the Combat Patrol, and then just straight into a War Boss. You'll see the War Boss is useful because he helps either the boys if you decide to power them up into a 20-man unit. You don't want to do 2 10-mans. You want to go to a 20. That's your choice, but he actually helps them and other units you'll see on this list as you continue. I would say, I know the truck meta is 6 trucks, you guys. I understand that, but this is advice for people that are really getting into it and not trying to lean too heavily into one way. If you want to add more trucks, that's on you. but I'm just going to advise one truck. That way you have a truck in your collection, because there's also a battle wagon and a kill rig on this list. So transports galore, right? This is about starting your army and getting things going, not spamming something out and then regretting your collection because maybe GW hits them with an unfair point cost, or you get tired of painting and building that same model. This is so you have a vast variety. And for the most part, when you collect orcs, you will bury yourself in models if you're not really thinking about the future. That happened to me. I actually get discouraged in the middle of putting all my models together because I had a vast swath of them. And I was like, I'm never going to get through this. So as you piecemeal feed this horde into your new collection, that's what you want to think. And that's also why I went with a little bit bigger models, to give you guys hindsight of why I put these things together, right? It applies to more people, especially newer hobbyists. So truck, boom, one truck. If you want to go more, that's on you. I love them. I own several. Right away, again, I will not get off the Gretchen, not just because they're good right now, because they're always good. They're always good to have in your collection, just to have some Gretchen and to go with the lore. So you got to have those little guys. Mega Knobs, immediately, you need a unit for your War Boss and Mega Armor to be helping, right? And just one straight box, boom, goes with your combat patrol, no brainer. Death Dread, Death Copters obviously come with your combat patrol. Battle Wagon. I decided to put a Battle Wagon in here because there are 3 options on this list for your Battle Wagons for things to go into. You can put the boys in there, you can put the knobs in there, you can put the Mega Knobs in there, you give the boy 1 unit of boys and a boy of Mega Knobs, whatever, right? It gives you an ability to still give yourself different looks in the game with these limited models you have, and still have a different platform to jump off, have a different idea of thinking, stuff like that. So Battle Wagon is in there because, one, it's beautiful. It'll give you a lot of bits. You'll appreciate having the model for a long period of time. It's very inherent to Orc lore. You'll love it. It's just great. And it does have utility in the game, and it does serve its own role, and you'll appreciate that. But because this list has to be cohesive and give you a chance to also win, there is a kill rig on this list. And just because you have Beast Snagga boys on this list, you want something for them to go into. You have something for the Beast Boss to go into. That way you can deliver up the field, or you can decide not to. But that's the general idea of this list. You want it to be cohesive without spamming, without leaning too heavily into something that you might regret later, and that you can just start off your collection with and you really appreciate. So kill rig, I've gone on the kill rig. I understand why people are down on it in the new index, but I'm okay, it's perfectly okay with it. A lot of people that are playing with it are finding success, especially because in the new release tournament pack, you can stand on the center of an objective, so you don't have to feel limited in your movement as well. Also, it's a multi-purpose model, and it gives you a nice chunk of points. That way you're getting a return, because as a horde army, guys, this is an expensive army to collect. You must understand. It's not like going in and collecting custodes or gray knights. You're going to have to get redundant boxes if you're going to have a vast collection. This is a way you can get boxes that are relevant to you. Different ways of playing, gives you different looks, different models that you collect, that you can paint jobs and see what you really favor. Because the last thing you want to do is invest your sweet hard money into some redundancy that eventually changes with the meta. So then you have Commandos. Commandos are just a great unit. They're one of actually newer boxes that GW has released. They give you great bits. You can throw them maybe on some of your boys just for the sake of it, because they'll look beautiful, and they have great utility in the game and always have. Commando boys, just great job getting at least one box of those. I'm in favor of knobs. I think knobs are beautiful. Models in general, they're definitely different than boys. They're larger, they look more buff, they'll stand, they'll tower over your boys. Their weapons look cooler, they look cruder, and they give your war boss somebody to get buff. They can go on the truck. They're a little bit more of a hard-hitting unit, and you might as well just start collecting some knobs when you're getting into orcs. Don't delay and not get somebody that you'll regret not having later. Squig Hog boys, we already went into that. Squig Hog boys give you access to another leader, but they're a newer orc line model, and they're a beautiful model that you want to collect. You will not regret getting them. They'll be long lasting in your collection. They serve their own purpose. Do not sway away from them just because they're popular. There's a reason they're popular. They're very new. So in case you were wondering why everybody's high on them, it's because they are actually a new model in the orc line. Storm Boys. Storm Boys are a beautiful model line as well. They have grots sticking out of the jetpacks and doing all types of cool things in them. But in every game of 40K and every edition, they serve, well, for the most part, have been serving purposes in scoring secondaries and scoring primary and getting in your enemy's backfield, and sometimes even being punching units. So Storm Boys are somebody you won't regret having. And like I said about the 1,000 point list, is for this 2,000 point list, they give you more flying access. And that's what you really want in the orc when you're doing this beginning collection, right? Think about stuff you don't have, holes you want to fit, and as you play the game, instead of being like, dang, in this local meta I don't have access key, some way to work around this unit. Well, now you actually have a unit base to build it off if you decide that unit is actually good in your meta, instead of just chasing something that doesn't work, right? Unless you really have a theme, then go ahead and just spam, right? And that's all good with that. And last but certainly not least are war bikers. Having one unit of war bikers in your army, whether you favor ground and pound, whether you favor the mech army, you'll never regret owning at least 1 to 2 unit of bikers, having that speed, having that throwaway model that it's just a different base, different platform, different toughness, and is cheaper, quicker than Squighog Boys, yet more durable than the Storm Boys. So that's just something that you want to go off. This is just a skeleton, guys. Think about what people would call Highlander. You don't want to spam too much. Now, if you do want to spam, you'll see that we actually do go into slightly more redundancies in the boarding action box. So we'll go over the boarding action one. And remember, guys, for the list that was shown before, this is because this is mostly favored to newer people. This is supposed to last throughout the edition, the index, and for anybody that's getting into Orks, they can reference, where do I go? Where do I start? Am I chasing the local meta? That's all they would do. If they go to another channel, they'll start thinking, oh, this is what's good right now. I have to get this, or I'll never beat my friends, or I don't know where to go. No, we're telling you this is a more favorable way, a less punishing way to start collecting Orks, which is a really diverse model line and quite expensive, right? So for boarding action, guys, this is actually less points than the combat patrol, as you can see. These GW didn't go out of their way to say, hey, we need to make sure that this is exactly 500 points, because the combat patrol, just playing on its own, is its own game. And then they give you access, hey, go ahead and expand from that, just like boarding action is its own game. So don't feel like you're getting gypped. These are still very good and new models. So right off the back, you see you get Snickrot. He's not a war boss, but he's still a very new model, and he has boys to actually buff, which are the commandos. Move right over to the Beast Snagger boys. You get a battle line unit. Very nice, very nice. And Flash Gits. Flash Gits are beautiful models. They're very big. They give you so many bits, and they are complicated to build if you ever hear that from another Ork player, right? So look online if you need to. There are actually diagrams that are colored and everything, so you can build them, because they can be troublesome and such. Now, we'll quickly touch over a 1,000 point list before we move straight up to 2,000. That way, if people have an idea of where do I go before I get into the heavy big britches, right? In this list, you want to think of a bit more pressure, because you do have Snickrot and the ability to essentially pick that model, that unit back up with the commandos and come in the enemy lines and really disturb them. So you really want to kind of force your enemy to forward front attack you and assault you. And with this are these units that I put in mind. So I started with a Beast Boss. We don't have a little diagram for that, but it's okay. There's only a couple models you got ahead here. The first other leader and only other leader that will be in a 1,000 point list, in my opinion, will be a Beast Boss with Head Wampus Kill Chopper. You will then add another unit of Beast Snagger Boys as a secondary battle line unit, as I really appreciate having a couple of battle line units to my collection. One truck, that way your Flash Gits have a firing platform. That way they're not just standing there in the open, only getting one turn of shooting. They have some ability to move around the battlefield, and you still have access to a truck. You can maybe use it instead to move your Beast Snagger Boys around. But I also do favor getting a kill rig. Now, if you don't want, the reason you go, oh, kill rig, well, hold on. It also gives you the idea you could use it as a hunter rig. That way you can use a 20-man unit. This is for diversity of play, 1,000 point, guys. Remember, this is, I'm talking 1,000 point list here. That way you get your money, your bucks worth in a model that can act as 2 different units, right? And it assists and buffs all your other units. So the kill rig itself also has command phase abilities to give your model 1 unit within 12 inches lethal hits. But in general, it's a new model that you would love to have in your collection, and it gives you the diversity of that. And it has a war boy in there. So you're also getting an additional character if you wanted to put him, but he's not in the list. I'm just telling you why this is a good kit to own as you're building up to 1,000 points. You obviously get the commando unit, beautiful, and another warbiker unit I think is good having. So you have some speed in this 1,000 point list to put pressure or hold objectives, or if someone for some reason has indirect, put those guys in some indirect and you'll be totally fine, right? If you really have to on this list. If you choose a hunter rig instead of a kill rig, you can just add Grots on this list as well. I love Grots. So that's what I would go over just for a 1,000 point list briefly, if you were to start it from a boarding action, but we're going to move straight up to a 2,000 point list here. Now, this is again with the mindset of I was trying to go slightly more Highlander-ish, yet I did double down in a couple of units here just because I didn't want to get too Highlander-ish, or that would be a little boring. But still, in mind, we have the Beast Boss on Squigosaur, right? I do think he is worth getting at 2,000 points. You could have got it in your combat patrol, but I didn't want to have the redundant list here that everything was the same. I did want to show a diversity, okay? So he's obviously good for getting an enhancement, or you can decide I'm going to try to make him Mazrog, okay? So, boom. Immediately move on. You have Naban Smasher Squig. He's going to be leading a big unit of 6 Squighog Boys. So in this list, I did go, hey, go ahead and get 2 boxes of Squighog Boys. Maybe you really like them, but they're also very relevant if you decide I want to be a little bit more competitive and not really be so stringent into what's good and just having and collecting. This list does give you a little bit more punch while you can still enjoy your combat patrol. Keep in mind, some of these, you can mix and match these 2 lists that I have presented at 2,000 points and get something that's more relevant to what you like, and keep and still keep the skeletal structure of what I'm putting together, putting forefront here. If you don't want to favor maybe a theme, right? I did, and you see this Snickrot, but I did actually add Gaz here. I added Gaz here because Gaz is a long-term, worthwhile having Ork model in your collection, right? Amazing. He's a newer model, so he's not going to get replaced. He comes with a really nice Makari. And so I say, go ahead. You're going on your first 2,000 point list. You can go ahead and add Gaz in there. Don't listen to what people think is competitive. Gaz is always fun and experience to play on the battlefield. And Orks, in my opinion, lack a little bit of those really big, bulky, intimidating models. So he gives you that feel as well. And if you like Mega Knobs, like this list has, you'll start going into a big unit of Mega Knobs, give someone to buff. 2 battle line units, as you see, I'll be redundantly putting in there, as I really like having at least 2 battle line units as you move up to a 2,000 point list, bare minimum. 1 truck, just because this isn't competitive. You can go ahead and add more trucks, guys. I know they're cheap, they're easy to plug and play, but this is to be long-term investments in the future of having a diverse model line and not just spamming something. But trucks are always good to have at least 1, but I would say go ahead and get 2 right up in there. 2 units of Gretchen. I love Gretchen. Like I said, if you want to go to trucks instead, that's fine. But 2 units of Gretchen on this 2,000 point list. Hold your back lines, maybe run and scout ahead, get yourself some early board control and such. And overall, having Gretchen in your army will never be a bad thing in your model line collection. Like I said, you will move on to a big unit of Mega Knobs. That way Gaz has something to buff as you play this game and move up. If you're worried about him getting shot, possibly outflank him if you can take enough board control, but that's if you can take enough board control. Depends on your opponent, right? If you do something like that. But don't be too scared to have Gaz, and really just because he's powerful, and or maybe some people might deem him not powerful because the prolific dev wounds there is right now in the meta. Don't worry about that, as things change, and he can either become amazingly powerful or just be a beautiful model that you have for long term if you decide not to use him in your casual games. We still have the Commandos, obviously, as they're part of the initial box. A big unit of Squig Hog Boys. You want something that Knob on Smasher Squig maybe is punching up into, really relevant in the meta, and you can, even if it's not in the meta, a big unit of Squig Hog Boys is still good. Maybe break it down to 2 small units, that's fine. But in this list, I did decide to go at least with a bigger unit of Mega Knobs and a bigger unit of Squig Hog Boys, as going too Highlander-ish might declaw you a little bit too much, right? And then I put 2 units of Flash Gits. That's why if you choose to drop a Gretchen unit, you can add another truck, and then you can have 2 shooting platforms, or just go all in and go bam, I'm gonna have all 10 of these Flash Gits in 1 truck and just lay it all on the line, right? And I add a custom booster blaster. Now, why did I do that? Oh, that doesn't mean to make sense. It's currently in the meta. Custom booster blaster does give you you can give an enemy unit -1 to hit. But in the future, why I added it is because, like I said, this is to expand your collection. You might just get a buggy unit that you really like in favor and add him to your line. Maybe it's an indirect model, right? He does serve additional purpose that you can think of right off the bat. So in general, you could adjust this to add a speedy buggy unit, and I like having buggies, but if you don't want to, that 85 points can be used as a flex to either upgrade or duplicate some of these models that are not so point efficient. Expensive. So David, after looking at some of these, what's going on in your thought process here?
Yeah, well, one thing I see that you're trying to do with these lists is just set a solid foundation for a new player to get a taste of the different types of units. Also, getting used to the different roles they play on the table. These lists are very scalable, so if you do eventually want to build into a specific theme, like the Speed WAAAGH or Mech WAAAGH, these lists are going to allow you to easily modulate to that. And yeah, there's multiple synergies where, like you're saying, you could run these Beast Snagga Boys as a 20-man blob if you want. You got options to put in the truck. With the other list, you got some options to put in the battle wagon. So, that was one of the big things when I first got into the hobby, was I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to build a list. I kind of just ended up getting a little bit of everything, and that didn't end up working out because all of a sudden I have a whole bunch of models that I need a hobby on, and it felt like there was never an end to it. So we're trying to set like a clear path for you guys to build towards and not get that hobby fatigue from just having an endless backlog of models to hobby on. And yeah, I think it's very beginner friendly here.
Orks are a horde army, and in my opinion, a bit higher on the tier of difficult armies to collect in 40K, to be honest. Custodes are easy, Grey Knights, Space Marines, etc. Orks get expensive quick, and they get tedious with how much models they are and stuff to put together. So if you're looking at this list as an experienced player or someone that's been watching a lot of competitive players, experienced players like that, and going, well, this isn't what's meta. Minimum strength units and trucks. I understand that, right? But this is for you not chasing the meta. This is for the meta coming to you, right? You'll have these models in your collection, and as you favor certain things, boom, meta changes, points changes overnight. All of a sudden, you're the person that's sitting on an abundance of these models or a foundation to what's going to become the long-term meta, right? If you played 9th edition, we'll say, you knew that the freebooters were right off the gate super powerful. Everybody was spamming that. But at the end of the edition, people were using Goths. And now look at it. Exploding sixes is our rule initially going into this game. So you don't have to favor any one thing. And in the future, even with the index, there's going to be new tribes or detachment rules that are going to be released. So don't limit yourself to what's out right now as you're looking at this. This video is going to have throughout 10th edition relevancy. You're going to get what's beautiful. You're going to get what's nice. That gives you bits as well. That's why some of these models were picked, in my opinion, right? Killer cans are something that I was going to put on this list. They give you really good bits as well, right? But in general, a lot of these model kits give you really cool bits that you can use to kit bash and mix and match with other units. That's a point of Orks as a whole. You'll be using a lot of creativity, a lot of hobby time, and a lot of your brain power to say, how can I get the most of what do I have? Can I squeeze out another boy here? Can I squeeze out a new kind of weapon here? So never, ever shy away from that as well. Never limit yourselves to what you see on any competitive or very strict channel that are trying to just win. As you get into this hobby, you'll learn that your money and your time are very valuable to you. And what you really want to do is get into something that you'll love, and you'll be more than happy to invest your time in hobby time into and your money into, right? And of course, were you saying something? Yeah. And right from this point, we're gonna go straight into comments because this is live, right? So I just wanted to hit the points right off the bat, see what you guys say, and then we can start. You can give me some feedback or some things that maybe some of you experienced players have come into, because I know a lot of experienced players might just sneak up on this chat live stream and say, hey, this is what I like. That's good too. Mind you, if you want to go through a theme, guys, doing a theme like a speed wall or mech wall is beautiful. Don't ever go try away from that.